Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. Happy to have my new best friend, Kate Eckman. Welcome to the program.
So happy to be here with you.
We got all the technical difficulties sorted out, I believe, but I'm glad 2021 is off to a good start, and I'm really excited to talk to you again. So thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, it's my joy to be here.
So give everybody a little bit of background about you and some context before we dive right in.
So I'm behind the buckets in that I never played basketball. I'm pretty horrible at it. I was a swimmer. So my whole life, my childhood was all about swimming, swam competitively for 17 years, all through college at Penn State. And I knew how hard I had to train my physical muscles to compete at a high level. And as I went about my life, like we all do, experienced struggles and setbacks and heartache and what I refer to as emotional gravity, which is anything that weighs us down. So stress, fear, anxiety, judgment, comparison, COVID-19. It's really putting a lot of pressure on us and keeping us from actualizing our full potential and living the lives that we're meant to live and being the people who can actually accomplish our cherished goals. So I got really passionate about building a program for my inner fitness and really getting strong, fit, confident on the inside so that I had the self-esteem and the resilience to handle and weather any storm that came my way. And I wanted to share these tools with other people so much because I've seen how much I've benefited from it. My clients, I work as an executive leadership coach with leaders in business and sports, professional athletes. And I really saw how working on our spiritual fitness has been transforming all of our lives. So I wanted to bring it to the world. And as a writer, I, put it into a book, and the Full Spirit Workout is born here on April 27th. And I'm just so delighted to share it with the world.
Right. You're a few weeks out, and tell me what that feeling is like. You would probably equate it to getting ready for a big meet and that competition and that adrenaline starts to pump. So tell me what that's about, just a few weeks out.
Yeah, and thank you for asking. I think some people don't fully understand what's happening, or it's like, oh, good for you, you wrote a book, but it is such a commitment. It is like being a parent or getting a face tattoo. There's no going back. You have to really be invested and committed. And it's so exciting. My favorite part I'm learning, besides actually writing the book, is doing these podcast interviews and meeting so many awesome people like yourself and connecting so that even when you're exhausted, even when the technology isn't working or you're frustrated or you're not getting along with your spouse that day or whatever it is, that you can come together and connect with someone and speak about something that you're really passionate about that can help energize and uplift the world. So I'm just trying to stay in the moment, like any good athlete, and really be present and one day at a time. So I don't even want to look to, you hear athletes all the time say this, they're being interviewed. They just won the game. All right, what's up next? What are you thinking about? You're playing the Cavs tomorrow night. And it's like, no, I'm right now, here I am. And I'm thinking about game 7 when we get to game 7. So I kind of am trying to stay there because it can be overwhelming and I like to overdo it. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. So that is so important for all of us, whatever you're experiencing right now, to just stay in the moment.
For sure. The term that I like to use is be where your feet are. And so, there's no more important place than where you are right here, right now, as you just mentioned. And if you are thinking about other things, well, the present moment is going to escape you. And so the people that are always thinking about what's next to come, or I have to do this, you're escaping that present moment. So whether that be being a father and being present with your children, it's not actually, and I listened to one of my buddy's podcasts recently, he talks about just spend time. It doesn't have to necessarily be quality time. It just has to be the time. But you can't devote your time to something if your head is somewhere else. And there goes the quality time in itself. So.
And as you know, as a parent, kids and pets, they'll call you out, right? Like, hello, there is nothing more fabulous than my cute face. Why are you on your phone? Or why aren't you paying attention to me? And I love and appreciate my niece and nephew for that, or the puppies, because they're like, what's up, man? What's cooler than me? And it's so true. And they remind you to stay in the present moment. They don't care how cool you are, or how much money you make, or what you look like. They're like, listen, pay attention to me, dude. And I appreciate that. Someone recently asked me about my mentors, And I listed my niece, who will be 13 years old tomorrow. I listed my niece as a mentor because she reminds me to be more playful and energetic and just have fun, but especially to be present. And I do all this research. I got my master's degree at Columbia, did this massive research paper about confidence. And I came up with the 5 P's of confidence. And my first P from all my research was presence. And so
Right.
being present, but also bringing your presence to everyone you meet and to everything that you do. Show up like you mean it. I see so many
Right.
people complaining they're not getting the results they want, but they're showing up with no energy, no enthusiasm. I'm like, you look like you don't even like what you're doing. So, we got to show up like we mean it. Come
For
on.
sure, for sure. No, you hit it right on the head, and two things that I'll touch on. One, my son said that exact same thing. Dad, pay attention to me. This was last week, and I was probably on my phone or doing something, and I wasn't paying attention. And he was right. He's like, Dad, pay attention to me. He's trying to show me, his artwork or whatever the case. And for that moment, I wasn't present, and I've lost out on that moment. And hopefully, I don't lose out on many more moments because I'm on my phone. And secondly, the two things that you can always control, you can't really control circumstances, but you can control your energy and your effort. Like you just mentioned, I tell this to our players all of the time. You can control your attitude, you can control your energy, you control your effort. And this morning in particular, our team did not have any juice. And I call, energy juice. And we had zero juice. And I said, we didn't have juice today in practice, but what you can do is once you walk out this door, make sure you're the most energetic, make sure you have a smile on your face. It doesn't matter what happened in practice, what happened before practice, it doesn't matter. From here on out, just make sure it's the best day that you've ever had. And these are very, very poignant points that you're making.
I love that. And I think that's good just to remember, especially at that age, there's so much. You think of the pressure we have on ourselves as grown adults who have been in the workforce for years. And I look at these kids. I spoke to my alma mater, Penn State, last night, and all the questions that came in from these students, it kind of broke my heart. They are so stressed out, and they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and it's exams and job and this and the internship. Do I have to do this? I'm so burned out. And these students telling me how they're studying and working for 16 hours a day. And on one hand, I commend the hard work and the effort, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that to me is a symptom of our sick society that places so much worth on the externals, the good grades, the, what you look like, how much money you're making, all of those externals. And what studies find is that none of that ultimately moves the needle on our well-being. None of that stuff makes us happy. And you've experienced this, right? Where you get the thing, you get the contract, you get the money, you get the win, and you're happy for about 15 minutes until it's on to the next shiny object and the next
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, I'm making 500,000 a year. Why the hell am I not a millionaire? And it's like, whoa. You've never made more than 100,000 and you're not happy with the 500,000 or whatever it is. I mean, pick your
Mhm.
thing. But, I think we all need to lean back into fun. And then when you were talking about your players, if I was there, I was thinking of what I would want to say. The question that came to me is, what'd you learn about yourself today? And I think too, when we can move into a place of curiosity rather than anxiety or frustration or fear, then we have fun with it too. Because, and I've asked that to the athletes that I work with, and they're so pissed after a bad game. What'd you learn about yourself? And they know they can list 10 things. They're like, I need to be more present. I need to be
Right.
more aggressive. Whatever. Everyone has their answer. So I think the more we can just say, all right, why didn't that work? And get curious about it.
Right. And what most people don't understand is it's a choice for you to react that way. And not everybody is equipped with the tools needed to react in a positive way and change their perspective. But that is something, the reason why you probably wrote your book is to hopefully help people change their perspective, little small habit changes that can actually go a long way in helping them, live a better life. And your point about the thank you next, that I think is Ariana Grande. Thank you next. That's
Yes.
it's so true. Like you get something and then all of a sudden, you want something else. Like Tom Brady, like after he won like 3 championships, he's like, he feels something empty. And now he's won, 7, I believe. But there's always something else. But the most important thing is being fulfilled in your life where you're at. And it's a hard thing that for people to understand, because we're a society, whether you're an athlete or a business person, it's always going next, 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 next. But that's not necessarily true happiness, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's why you see so many people who have it all, whatever that is, and all the success on the outside, the beautiful spouse, the beautiful home, all the money, all the things. And I've worked with a lot of these people, and they all, it's hard for them to even admit, but that's part of the work. And first step, get real with yourself, be honest, acknowledge it. I don't feel fulfilled. I have
Mm.
all the things that society said should and would and will make me happy. But something is missing. And it's that whole like, is this as good as it gets? I've checked all the boxes. And the reason that you're not experiencing that is because you've kind of fallen asleep to who you are underneath all those roles and labels and really getting clear on what lights you up and the things that studies and all this nerdy research that I did, what actually moves the needle in our well-being and actually makes us happy and fulfilled are practices like savoring. So slowing down and being mindful when you're having your morning coffee with your partner or your best friend or your roommate or yourself, and really even thinking about everything it took to bring that food that you're eating to your home, everything it took to bring those coffee beans that are now that you're drinking. And even I did this meditation and it was like, you're drinking a cloud. And I just thought, oh, and it kind of sounds silly, but it slowed me down. And that's what COVID did. I mean, I remember discovering this meditation a month into lockdown or 2 weeks into lockdown. And really that helped me just sitting and contemplating and thinking about everything. We never think about everything that's involved in the food we eat every day, or everything it took to bring us our car or our home, or even the clothing that we're wearing. And so again, slowing down and getting more mindful. And one of my favorite ways to boost our happiness and sense of well-being, again, all of these things are free, which I love too. Some people say, well, I'm not happy because I can't afford that, or must be nice to be that person. But savoring is free. Writing a gratitude letter. I do this beautiful exercise in the book where you think of someone who has changed your life for the better, who you've never properly thanked. Because what do? We wait until people die and then we cry and are like, oh my gosh, I never told this person how much they meant to me. So it's being that act of gratitude and appreciation. And you're supposed to write them a 300-word letter and then go to their house, just show up or tell them, hey, I'm coming over. Don't tell them why, and read it face to face. COVID, of course, it might be over Zoom. But I did this with my friend Vanessa and read this letter to her. And we both cried at the end. Like, psychologist Marty Seligman, who founded positive psychology, he said, you will probably cry. And he said, also, we find that this exercise has lasting effects on your happiness and well-being. So you do this one act, both you and this other person, your well-being goes from here way up here. Yet
Wow.
how many of us take the time to do that? We're like, no, I got to go shopping and get a new bag. No, I got to, make more money. I got to, have more followers on social media. And a lot of people don't want to hear this because it is a practice and it's so counterintuitive to the way we're taught to live our lives in this society.
That's pretty deep. A lot of the times doing something for others makes you feel a lot better about yourself, so serving others really helps you in your mentality. That's why so many people do that. And the thing about being mindful, and that's something that's been over and over in my life the
Yes.
last year, it's crazy to believe that, okay, if I wanted to go in the refrigerator and go grab something, I have to think about that. Okay, what am I going to grab? I have a decision to make. Well, when we're breathing, that's the one thing that is automatic with our bodies. It is automatic for us to want to breathe or just unconsciously breathe. And so when you talk about actually thinking about breathing and slowing down your respiratory system, well, a lot of the functions that we or reactions that we have are because of how we're breathing. If we get really angry, we get really riled up. Our breath is going much faster, but we're not conscientious of how to slow that down. And that's why when you get in an argument with people, they tell you to walk away because, cooler heads will prevail. But that mindfulness is extremely important. I know you talk about that a lot in the book. But one thing that I want to jump to is, you seem like you are that person that has it all put together. You've had a fabulous career. You're very well educated. You competed at the highest level, and in your sport. What were some of the downfalls in your life? I wouldn't even say downfalls, but some of the low points that got you to the moment you're at now.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And that's a great question. And I think there's this thing too where people think you reach a certain level of success, or, I get a lot of, oh, I didn't think someone like you, whatever the heck that means, would experience this or that. And for me, I do find people get triggered or are uncomfortable talking about mental health or suicide, something I've been greatly impacted by. People don't want to talk about this stuff, or they just want to talk about the happy. Or even I give keynotes and people say, oh, I didn't think you were going to talk about that. I thought you were just going to talk about how you became successful. And I think, well, that sounds boring and narcissistic. You know what I mean? I think we learn by the times that we fell on our face and the struggles. And I do speak very openly about, being someone who, despite the outside success, was filled with turmoil and anxiety and insecurity, and had this forward facing career, and had all of my self-worth placed in the externals. Like most people, by the way, I'm not special for being like that. And then having the tragic wake up calls of losing my ex-boyfriend and a best friend to suicide in 1 year. And there's no going back after that. I mean, it changed the trajectory of my life. I'm grateful for that. I went through a lot of pain. I still do. I think about them and miss them all the time, every day. But that's another reason I wrote this book. I dedicated it to them. Something gorgeous blossomed out of all of the grief and the tragedy and trauma. And that's what I invite everybody to do when you experience something that really like knocks you off your course significantly, that brings you to your knees, and ask God, ask a higher power, whatever you believe in. What can I do with this to impact the world, to serve the world? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? And I got this. It was a divine assignment from my angels. It's something that's another reason that I can keep going, is because I have a really strong why and purpose.
Uh,
So many people, they'll even say, I want to write a book. And why? And a lot of answers are, well, notoriety or more business. And I'm like, you're going to be miserable with anything, whether it's writing a book or whatever goal you have. You really have to have a strong why, and it has to make a lot of meaning for not just you, but for your community and for the world. So, I talk openly about my struggles, and it is a practice. And that's why I put this program together, because it's like going to the gym. There's no like, oh, I'm fit, I never have to work out again, or I've got my six pack, I'm done. And if you have a six pack, I wouldn't know. I've never had one, but I would imagine that you're working harder than anyone to maintain that. So, again, like the gym, your personal trainer can't do your sit-ups and push-ups and pull-ups for you. That's on you.
right.
It is a practice. It is a commitment, but the results, just like a strong, fit physical body, are so worth it when you're now becoming the man or woman who just naturally attracts the people and opportunities and experiences to help you live your purpose, and to feel genuine fulfillment instead of fulfillment, like the faux fur coats. There's this faux fulfillment that so many people are experiencing, and that's why it's like eating sugar. They're just like, this
Mhm.
isn't enough. I don't feel anything from this. I feel that short hit, and then it's gone. So I think really getting centered and grounded with who we are on the inside, being super real about what is going on within us, and not pretending and not denying, and knowing that it's okay to experience a lot of upsetting or unsettling feelings. It's actually healthy.
How long did it take you to get over the untimely passing of two people that were so close to you?
I think I'm still getting over it. I think anyone listening who has lost a loved one, especially in a very traumatic, surprising, shocking way, you never really get over it. I think you create a new normal. I think you're cruising along and you'll be like, oh, I'm kind of past this, or I'm doing well. And you'll hear a song, or you'll just be sad. You'll think about it and it's like, gosh, that's so sad when you think about this vibrant, gorgeous, beautiful life, or the time that you shared together, or those funny things they would say or do, and how they'd make you laugh or smile, or just feeling their arms around you, and that love, and missing it. And it's normal and healthy. And then I just have to remind myself they're always with me now. In the human form, people go to work, or people are separated by so many different reasons or ways. And now it's that comfort of knowing they're always with me, and I do feel their presence, and I tune into them. But I think that's another thing that our society really does that's so detrimental to our mental health. And that is, oh, you lost someone. I'm so sorry. We need you back at work tomorrow at 8 a.m. And there's this like, we'll give you a day to grieve. And we really do ourselves a disservice when we don't give ourselves the proper time and care and attention to really mourn. And I write about that openly in the book. And doing that to myself and having a massive panic attack in the middle of Times Square, which is a horrific event to even think about. And thank God my brother is a physician, and thank God I called him and he answered his phone. And I don't want to even think what would have happened to me that day. And so it's, not getting to that place where it is a 911, and really caring for ourselves and letting ourselves feel what is coming up for us, and that it's okay, and really start to normalize feeling sad, and or feeling depressed. At this point, if you aren't sad or depressed from time to time, then I worry about you, because I don't think you're fully awake and conscious. You've gone somewhere under a rock, and we need you to be out from under the rock, and paying attention, and showing up fully here.
Specifically for men, they try to suppress a lot of these things, and how to, you know, how do guys who have been taught this one way for so long try to show that vulnerability to others, because it's so ingrained in us. Like if you get hurt, it's like, all right, get up. If your girlfriend breaks up with you, all right, get over it. And it's just a very difficult thing for guys in particular. And one person that I love that I'm sure you probably know of her too, Brene Brown.
Amazing.
She talks about the vulnerability that she shares so much vulnerability, and that the beauty really is in the pain and the struggle that we all have. We're not immune to it. Everybody has it. But getting to that place, especially for men, is really difficult.
It is. I think it's an epidemic, and both of the men, two heterosexual men who literally had it all, were two of the most beloved people on the planet, with their friends and family, highly successful, great looking, all the things. I think, are the only two people in my entire life who I never heard them say one bad thing about another person, and that just makes me weep right there, because it shows you like the kind of person that they are, and that they chose to do this. And so I think it is our responsibility, I think, as women, to create that space for men to feel safe to express themselves, their real selves. Not that I see this saying, I have a dad, I have a brother, and it's this, oh, I'm great. Or I see it even on podcasts with men or something. Sometimes it's just, I can see and feel this wall. And I'm like, whoa, like you don't have to like put this armor up. You can just be. But I think it is that fear of maybe even being fully seen, or I don't want to be judged. I don't want this person to not like me. I don't want this person to think I'm weak, or, all the things that are said to young boys growing up. It is that. I mean, even the name calling and things like that. So I think it's so important for all of us to give each other that space. And I think there's so much emphasis placed on like, how much money do you make? And like, what do you look like? And how fit are you? And how well do you dress? And for me, I mean, the sexiest thing in a man is someone who is emotionally intelligent and open with their feelings, and can express themselves or admit like, I don't have it all together today. I'm having a hard time, or, that really hurt me when you said that. And just being able to communicate in an open, vulnerable way. And even,
Right.
Brene Brown, as you said, she's done so many studies and so much work on the best leaders are vulnerable leaders, or people who care the most. And I think things are changing a little bit. I think that people are waking up to the fact that keeping your feelings suppressed, like in the case of my two friends, will literally kill you. keeping it all in, they see no way out. So that's another reason I like to speak openly about it. Or clients I work with, the stressed out college basketball coach with all the pressure, all the expectations, all the mean things being said about him in the media. It's just like, what are you doing to protect your energy? What are you doing to care for yourself? How are you managing the stress? And calling people out lovingly, but just point blank, like even to ask you as a friend, like, what are you doing to manage all the stress of having all these careers, having to be the breadwinner, supporting a family? What are you doing to keep it all together so you don't snap? And just having these kind of conversations instead of how much money did you, what deal did you bring in? Or, are we going to the game tonight? I think we all owe it to ourselves to start having some deeper, richer conversations and connections. We are all desperate and craving connections, and we check out and are disconnected because of our culture. So we've got to go against this norm and really start to care and look out for each other with a bit more love and concern.
100%. 100%. You are spot on. And, the problem is people don't want to really have the difficult conversations, especially with the racial unrest that was taking place last May. There was just a lot that was going on, and my family is interracial, and so my father-in-law, who is white, uh, he listened to a podcast that I did, what it means to be black in America, and
Wow. Thank you for
this
doing that. Wow. I got to listen to that one.
yeah, I'll send you the link. But I did it with one of my compadres, and we just talked about our experiences being black every single day. And in the Bay Area, it's a lot different than other places. We're in a bubble, and you may not, if you were white or not non-black, you probably wouldn't recognize some of the things that take place unless you were actually black. And after he listened to that, he said, we really need to talk. We need to have a conversation. So that Sunday when we went over for dinner, we had a real conversation. It was the first time that we can be brutally honest with each other and not hold any punches while being respectful and understanding that it's these conversations that move the needle. It's not hiding it and suppressing it. And, I've known her for a decade, and we've never even talked about anything of that importance. And I think that is the way to look at things, where you have a forum where you can have an open and honest conversation, and everybody has no ulterior motives. They just want to first and foremost listen. I want to listen to everybody else's perspective, and I'll tell you my perspective. And guess what? Just like these clothes I wear, my perspective can actually change, and their perspective can actually change. And I found that that's one of the best things in this past year that have happened, where I'm now having open conversations. Yesterday, I went to dinner with one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding, and we just haven't talked a whole lot recently, but we talk every single day because we do business together. We have multiple businesses that we're running, whether it be our facility or our club and all of that. And we didn't talk about work for the hour and a half that we were there. It was a beautiful time. He's getting ready to have his first child, and we talked about a lot of that. And we just talked about he had been going through some things, and we talked about that. We didn't talk about work, and that was the best possible thing that we needed, because it wasn't about what our next thing is or what we're going to be doing. It was about what he was going through, really. And I think he really needed it, and I needed it too. And we reconnected, and it was just a beautiful thing. But it's hard for us guys to really go that deep.
Yeah, and what I heard in both of those examples was that you felt seen and heard and acknowledged. And it sounds so simple and so basic. It almost sounds like air and water. Like, yeah, as humans, we need to see, hear, and acknowledge each other. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I don't think people, even people who love us or claim to love us, even see us half the time. And
Mm,
whether they haven't developed the capacity to truly see themselves, or they don't see themselves in our opinions or our
mm,
decisions or our choices. And it's such a travesty. And I really see it and feel it pulling ourselves from each other. And what you just described there was so beautiful because I think that we don't take the time to always see people who are different from us, or even people, this is an in-law, and clearly he sees you in some capacity, but unless you really sit down with someone and ask them, or ask them their experience,
Right.
what has it been like growing up as a Black man in America? Or I remember saying to an African American friend back in May or June, and it probably sounded silly, and we're very close, so I could talk to him like this, but I said, how's your Black man heart today? And he kind of laughed, and he was like, thank you for asking. He said, my Black man heart is crumbled. It's devastated. And I said, I can't even imagine, because I feel the same, and I'm not a Black man. So I think just the more that we can slow down and see each other. I even, like, a friend of mine has these parties where she just invites different groups of people, and you are not allowed to talk about your job. You can't talk about work. What do you do? It's not like, oh yeah, we should connect or network. And I love that, because I even find I get on things and I won't even ask, and people just start giving me the laundry list of everything they've achieved since they last saw me. And it's just like, this isn't a competition. That's great. And good for you. And I appreciate you telling me. But what I really want to know is, hey, how are you doing underneath all of that? And I think that's a thing too. Even I talk about a story. My cousin is, a Harvard graduate, extremely successful CFO. And when I asked him, who are you underneath all of that? And this was recently, as a 40-something-year-old man, he said, I have no idea. And I
Mm.
thought, wow, Mr. Harvard has no idea who he is underneath all his titles. And so I think that's common for a lot of people, and the importance of taking that time to really be with yourself and check in. How are you doing? What do you need? And doing this with ourselves. And then we grow the capacity to offer it to someone else. I always say, people can't give you what they don't have. And it's so infuriating to deal with people sometimes who don't see you, don't respect you, don't acknowledge you. But then I have compassion, because I'm like, they don't even see or acknowledge or respect themselves. So I think when we can do it and kind of set that example of, here's how you do it, and then let that spread out. And as you know, when you do all that work on yourself, it has that ripple effect. You're affecting your family, your community, the world. And so it works. And I think we owe it to ourselves to spend this time and to do the work. Is it uncomfortable? Can be. Is it feels like you're not making a lot of progress when you're putting in all this work? Yes. But it's like when you go to the gym and you're like, man, I've been working so hard for months. I don't see any results. I haven't lost weight. I'm not more toned. And then you kind of get to that 5th, 6th month, and you're really starting to feel more fit and toned and more shredded. And it's the same with our inner fitness and our spiritual fitness. You don't have to try so hard. You're just attracting these incredible people and opportunities and experiences. I'm like, people email me, people find me. I really don't have to try, because I become the type of person who attracts that. Does that make sense?
1000%. If and it goes back to the energy that you put out there. If you really go into any type of relationship without wanting anything from the other person,
Mm.
there's so much more that can actually come from it. When you go into a relationship, and like, if I ask you for something, and we're still in the beginning stages of knowing each other, um, you, in the back of your mind, you're always going to know, well, I gave all this stuff to Chris, and it's not reciprocated. All relationships need to be a two-way highway, and they both need to be reciprocated, and not wanting anything, and most importantly, trying to serve the other person. However I can help you, let me know what I can do for you. It ends up going so far, because if you do need something, that person's going to be there for you most of the time. And if they're not, that person probably shouldn't have been in your life in the first place.
Amen. And I just heard this song, I hope you know it, but I don't want to sing because I don't want anyone's ears to bleed, but it's,
Go ahead and sing.
but it's that, like, you only get what you give. And even
Mhm.
spiritually speaking, you only get to keep what you give away, meaning you only get the love if you're able to give it away. It's like you get what you give. And sometimes people are just in that mindset of what I can get, how can I make it happen? And when you focus on what you can give, that's when you see it all coming back in twofold. And that's why I ask God, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? And it's a spiritual practice that I do. And it's helped me a lot because that's the best way to get unstuck too. Everyone's talking about, I doubt myself. I am insecure. Don't feel confident. I'm stuck. And it's like, because you're focusing only on yourself and your strength, where you can focus on a higher power. You can focus on, hey, how can I show up for Chris today and help him? And even I think that's why, we call each other our new best friend, because I didn't feel that take energy from you and vice versa. It was more of just genuinely interested. And then like, hey, when you're ready to write your book, reach out to me. I've got you. I'll let you know what I've, learned. I'll put you in touch with my agent, all of those things, because it's just two colleagues helping each other out rather than it's like, hey, hook me up. And also, even these college students I talked to last night, they're stressed out about the internship. They want the mentor. And I said, you don't have money to give right now. You don't have a lot of resources, but so give your appreciation. If you hire me as a mentor, you can't quote unquote pay me. It isn't an equal exchange, but if you come with so much appreciation and gratitude, then I do feel fulfilled. And I will give you my time and energy. I will make the call to help you get a job. So I think the more we can focus on what we can give, how we can serve our strengths rather than the other way around, life just works a lot better. You feel so much better.
100%. And not turning down potential opportunities. When Javier initially emailed me, it's like I can ignore this email or I can respond to it. And because I responded to it, well, this made this new connection, and who knows where it can go from there. And that happens so often. People are just willing to shut things down because they're new. But if you open your mind, there's going to be a whole nother door that can potentially be open because of it.
100%. And full transparency, before we got on this call, I was experiencing some overwhelm and exhaustion. And there's so many great things happening, but or you get the irritating email and it's like, what the hell? And so, but you got to show up. You've got your meeting, you've got your appointment. And so before I got on this call, I just told myself, just show up and be curious. And I was like, make it about Chris, like see how Chris is doing and just give you the energy. And then you gave it back to me. I don't even really remember what I was annoyed about an hour ago, because now the focus is on being in the moment, having this beautiful conversation. But I came in with the intention of like, see how Chris is doing today. And then, I showed up and you're like, my internet's not working. And so it's like, it's so frustrating. I'm like, oh, I get it. And again, the main thing I wanted to do with you is just acknowledge how annoying it is when the internet isn't working, rather than some people won't even give you that. They're like, oh, you seem grumpy, like, bye. It's like, hey, that's really frustrating. I've been there. You good? Let's try the hotspot. So that is so simple. It sounds so basic, but we just forget to give that to ourselves and each other so often. And I'm just gently reminding everyone to be a little more mindful of how they're interacting with everyone, starting with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to make a hard right because you spent some time around the Los Angeles Lakers in the early 2000s. And Phil Jackson, you talked about Phil Jackson earlier a little bit, but you got to really be around him and Kobe Bryant and Shaq and all that. So tell me about how that experience was for you when, you were just coming up in the industry.
I love this question. Thank you. Yeah, I was working as an entertainment reporter, and the Lakers at that time were, 2000, 2001, 2002. They were even larger than Hollywood and a lot of the celebrities at times. And I'm a big sports fan. I would go to the games. There was nothing more electrifying than the Shaq and Kobe magic and all the NBA championships. But what stood out to me even more during all of those games was Phil Jackson and how calm and cool and collected this man was. The polar opposite of any other coach I've seen, who's stomping up and down the court, the beat red face, screaming at the refs, screaming at the players, getting ejected. That man sat there with the world blowing up around him and was so unbothered and unfazed. And I remember sitting there and overlooking the Shaq and Kobe 30-point games and slam dunks and all the theatrics and thinking, oh my gosh, that Harry Met Sally moment of I'll have what he's having. But what is that? And so I did
Mm,
what any good journalist would do. I Googled, and I became just fascinated by him and all of his success, and that it wasn't about what our culture says, the grinding and the hustle and it was the calmness and the stillness and that inner knowing and inner confidence and strength, which is what I've written a whole book about. And he was my inspiration, 20 years ago, and doing the mindfulness and the meditation, and that, what did he say? He says, wisdom is always an outmatch for strength. And so even that inner game is so much more potent and powerful than the outer game. And you see that because you see people, yes, you have to have the natural talent and work hard physically, but you see when push comes to shove, this, like the free throw line, that's mental. The end of the game, you're tired, your knee hurts, everything else, mental. It's developing that inner calmness where none of that nonsense or outside noise can rattle you. And Kobe's also an example of that. I've got Mamba mentality sitting right behind me, and I just feel his spirit around me a lot too. And that reminder to keep going, put one foot in front of the other and keep going. But that man's ability to block out the noise and nonsense, not just at the arena, but in general, I channel that a lot because look, we're all going to get distracted. We're all going to fall off the path, but just coming back to center, keeping your blinders on like Seabiscuit, and really having that focus and focusing on your own thoughts and feelings instead of all the critics and all the other stuff. And I think all of them, and then Shaq, we all just love Shaq, right? But I really will never forget what I learned, just as a young person at those games, and the importance of blocking it all out, all the noise, and B, coming not just back to center, but deep within yourself. That's where
mm.
all the good stuff is. And that's what I learned. And those men are all examples of like the best of the best in terms of outer success. But when people ask me about success, I'm like, I want to feel at peace. I mean, all that stuff is great. That can all be taken from you. I want to feel at peace within. And that's what I experienced when I would look at Phil Jackson.
Right. And Phil was, I mean, one of the smoothest people ever, right? But it's just, I don't know how you have that demeanor in such critical, high pressure, tense moments. And he would just sit back, he'd put, fold his arms over his knee,
Yes.
and they would be down, and he would tell, he would kind of they'd kind of look over, and you guys will figure it out. And that calmness and that stillness is just amazing. And the one thing about all three of those individuals is they it was only about the people that mattered. So the outside people, Kobe could block out. Shaq, like was a little bit more open than Kobe, but he was able to block that stuff out when he needed to. And Phil Jackson, obviously, the same way. And I think it's a rare quality to have. I think if you were able to, so it's two different things. We talked about having this wall up a little bit earlier. There's one thing having a wall, and there's another thing is just keeping your blinders on, as you mentioned. One is your focus on the task, and then once that task is done, you can basically remove the blinders to whatever the situation is. Like if my task is to play basketball at a high level and win these playoff games, that is my task at hand. But I can also take those away when I go home, and I have my family, I have my kids, I have these other things, and that's what I really respected about Kobe, especially post career, is his involvement with his children. You were able to see that vulnerability finally from him, because when he was so dialed in as far as playing basketball, he wasn't going to give his opponents that. But you knew after his career, because what he was showing, he had so many other layers to him, and he just didn't share those layers with the world. I'm sure the people closest to him knew that. But that's the really one thing that I've taken from him. That's the reason why I did this podcast. When he died, it reminded me that we don't have time. We, in the grand scheme of things, if I live to 100, that's a lot of time on this earth for me individually. But I don't know when that time is going to end. If COVID hit 2 months before, Kobe's still alive. Kobe is still alive because he's not going to be traveling to a basketball tournament on a helicopter 2 months earlier. And that that to me just says, okay, you got to get up and do some things that you wanted to do. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas, but I didn't want to share them with anybody because they're my thoughts and ideas. Well, what use is that going to do to help anybody else if you just hold on to everything? And that's why I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious about a lot of subjects. So having you on, or having a coach on, or having a business person on, or educator is extremely valuable to me. This is, some people say I'm doing a service for others, but it's really selfish because I'm getting the best of you. I'm getting the best of any other guest that I have the privilege to have on. And that's really fueling me. Like, I don't have to do this. I do it because I love it. I enjoy talking to different people and getting their perspective, because some of the things that you've talked about today are going to help me in my own life and eventually potentially help somebody else. And that's why I think this is so important, and it comes around full circle. These things that you're talking about are resonating with me in a way that is going to allow me to comprehend it how I take it or interpret them. And then I'm going to be able to share that new perspective with other people. And it may end up happening where something that you brought to my attention now comes to my attention and I bring it to somebody else. And that's the reason why it comes full circle.
I love that. And even just the vulnerability piece, because thank you for sharing that with me. And that's a level of vulnerability, just sharing what's on your heart. And when we talk about Seabiscuit with the blinders on, but when you have your blinders on, your heart is open. Your heart is open. You're running free. You're fierce.
Mm,
You're so open that you're willing to block everyone, because you're closed off when you're worried about what all the other horses are doing, what everyone else is doing. When you got your blinders on, your heart is wide open and you are just
mm,
running your own race. Kobe
right.
Bryant, he had the stiff upper lip, he had the swagger, but the vulnerability it takes to show up and let people say whatever they're going to say about you, whether you're playing well or you're not playing well. But he had that vulnerability and that like raw, ferocious, relentless fierceness. And so we may not have Kobe Bryant's talent on the basketball court or otherwise, but we can all show up with that relentless, fierce, unwavering determination and passion and fire within us. Whatever your thing is, show up with that. And that's what the full spirit workout is. It's showing up with
Right.
your full spirit, your authentic power and truth. Let's go. I think you're like, I'm not sharing my ideas. And we all have these fears. And that's what the comfort zone is, this arbitrary boundary keeping us stuck because of fear. And it's a lie. Even today, there was a thing and that happened. And I was just like, that is a lie. And calling out a lie when it's a lie, whether it's I'm not good enough or what are people going to think or whatever, that's a lie. Delete it on the file in your mind, like the virus on your computer. And quite frankly, at this point and in the world and in our lives, we owe it not just to ourselves, but everyone around us to really show up like we mean it, to use our gifts, to focus on our strengths. And dare I say, have fun and enjoy
Mm,
ourselves and each other and our lives. Like, come on, people. I mean, we don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. Like, let's go.
right. Yeah. No, like I said last week, I'm ready to run through a wall for you, coach.
I
That's for
know. I
sure.
know. If your players aren't showing up, you know who to call. Be like, listen,
For,
guys.
yeah, for sure. Get them in line for sure. Uh, as we wrap it up, obviously we got had the technical difficulties, but what are some of your guilty pleasures? Like what's something that people might not know about you?
Oh, wow. A guilty pleasure. Well, I love Italian food. I'm
Mm,
German, but I'm a wannabe Italian. And I think when I need to decompress and take a break, I find my go to my favorite Italian spot and I have the margarita pizza and the
mm,
Montepulciano red wine and let myself just relax. That's another theme I'm seeing with people is just not even giving themselves any time for pleasure. And I love that I brought up Italy and Italian because they make fun of us in America. They're like, you guys are insane. You work yourselves to death so that you can sit around in your pajamas all weekend and sleep. And I'm like, Oh gosh, I do
Right.
that. So I think it is incorporating and infusing more pleasure into our lives. I like to just go and I'm really bad at dance, but I think that's why I like to go to dance class because it's liberating to show up and be willing to show up and not be great at something yet or ever. And when it isn't your skill set, you develop this next level confidence because you're like, hey,
Mm,
I'm willing to be here and kind of look like an ass in front of people. But I think also dance and that movement, um, it kind of freaks me out, but you move the emotions in your body. So you may think like, I'm good, I'm good. You go to dance class, you're like, oh, I'm really angry, or like, oh, but you're releasing it from your body, but not your typical exercise. So I think anything where you can just feel a little more free. And
do
then
you
my
let me cut you off there. Do you
yeah.
sometimes feel like uh you're comparing yourself to the other people that in the dance class that might be really good?
Oh, 100%. And I call and that's the fear or the embarrassment or as someone who prides themselves on being quite accomplished at a few things, your inner critic is like, "Why don't you just go do the stuff you're good at? Like, why are you putting yourself out?"
Mm,
Basically your ego is like, "Why are you making me look bad?" know, where your spirit is like, "This is fun," or that's the whole point. But absolutely you're in comparison and you're doing that. But then you get past that because I'm like, I'm never going to be the best dancer in class. I'm never going to dance like J Lo or Usher. And what's brilliant about that is I'm going to dance like me. And that's good enough. And in that moment, I become a dancer. And by the way, nobody in class cares about me. They're all worried about themselves anyway. No one cares what I'm doing.
for sure.
That's a metaphor for
And
life. No one really cares about what you're doing as much as you think they do.
a lot of us have that narcissistic quality where it's like, oh, we think people are watching us. Like if you go into a Starbucks and you think that everybody's focused on you, they're really not. They don't care what you order. They don't care, what you're doing. You're not bothering or impeding on their space. So it really doesn't matter what, other people outside of the world think of you. And if they aren't somebody in your inner circle, what does it really matter if they don't they what they think about you in the end anyway? It
Yeah.
doesn't do anything for your benefit focusing on what everybody else is doing. That's something that I've always done. Is I've always stayed in my own lane. I really don't like. I want everybody to succeed, whether they be competitors as coaches or competitors as business people. I want them all to succeed. Everybody, there's enough for everybody if you do it the right way. There's people that I don't care for, but I don't wish, I don't wish them, any bad luck. They're just not my cup of tea, and that's fine. But I think that's a great point. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing, and the people that care are the ones you should really value their opinion. Other than that, everybody can kick rocks.
Yeah, as I like to say, my thoughts and feelings about me are the only ones that truly matter, and I see why we're new BFFs, and
For
that's
sure.
that's such a testament to putting yourself out there, whether it's starting the podcast, writing the book, being willing to put yourself and your message out there in a real and vulnerable way. You never know the incredible people you're going to meet, and then the ripple effect from there, and again, if you are listening to this and you feel stuck or you feel like crap or whatever, please, I encourage you to reach out to someone right now, have a conversation, because I feel so genuinely fulfilled and happy right now and so great. We're not making a penny having this conversation. We're not, I mean, it's just we are in the moment having a real conversation. My favorite thing to do in life is connect with others. You got me over any upset or frustration I had from an hour ago. And this is what it's all about. Right. And this
Definitely.
is so simple. Everyone has access to this, but
For
we
sure.
don't take advantage. We think we need more money, more whatever. And this connection, this conversation, this stays with us forever.
Definitely. This is the plug version of the show. So plug anything and everything. I know the full spirit workout will be coming out in 2 weeks. So plug that or any of your social media handles where everybody can follow you.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with you. Thefullspiritworkout.com. You can get all the book information. And if you pre order, you get lots of free gifts I would take advantage of. And my website is Kate Eckman, Eckman. MAN .tv. And yeah, I would just love to anyone who resonated with what we said, or anyone who would like to just feel more confident or fulfilled or energized in any way, I would love to connect with you online. I'm Kate Eckman everywhere on social. And I think it's important to build community and a place where you can feel safe, you can tell it how it is, be vulnerable, and just feel really seen and acknowledged. And that's what I've created on the internet. You know, everyone complains about social media or the media or the internet. Make it your own. Make it a place that you're proud of, and that where you feel good, and invite others in to feel good as well.
Right. I always end the show with this because I'm busy and it makes it a lot easier for me in the long run. But if there's somebody that should come on Beyond the Buckets, who would it be and why? But before you say, you have to make the connection so we can get them on the show.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great question. And it plays in perfectly to literally what I just said about my favorite thing to do in the world is to connect and to, wow, you're good. Okay. Do I need to name the person right now?
Yes, you
I
do.
think,
I'm
okay.
putting you on the
Okay.
spot.
You know what? And okay, this is perfect. His name is Matt Coleman. He just wrapped up his senior year at University of Texas. He was the point guard, one of 3 point guards, but I call him the point guard.
Hmm.
And he played for so I'm giving you two people. He played for my dear friend Shaka Smart, who is now at
Uh-oh.
Marquette. So
Yeah.
they both, again, am like, who came to mind? Matt came to mind. Shaka came to mind. They're both incredible people. They both are into the buckets, and I love them and I love you. And I think so great. I'm going to have them both. I think they would be both excellent guests, and it would be a mutually beneficial experience for everyone, listeners, you, them. I love this idea. See, I'm glad you
The-
asked.
Texas had a really great year this year. I believe they won the Big 12.
Until that tournament, man. Oof.
Yeah. I think they won the regular season. I don't think they obviously, fell short in the Big 12 tournament. But yeah, Shaka Smart, a legend. I followed him since he was at VCU, so I'd be extremely honored. And I love the point guards because that was my position too. So
See where this was meant to be. Your new best friend is giving you some good people. This is what's up. I
for
love it.
sure. So really appreciate you joining the program. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. And thank you everyone for joining us. This is fun. I think we're creating some good juju for people.
Definitely.